Okay, warm welcome again as we restart our meeting. Do we have any apologies for today? I believe we have Councillor Tim Blackler.
Yes, that's correct, Madam Chair.
And Councillor Jim Hopkins will be leaving a wee bit early this afternoon. Okay, and that was moved originally by Councillor Jim Hopkins, seconded by Councillor Ryan.
Seconded by who?
Councillor Ryan. That's carried. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest? All right, there are no declarations of interest. We move to agenda item number 3, confirmation of previous meeting minutes, 3.1. Yes, Councillor.
Madam Chair, I would move confirmation with one clarification question. On page 9 of our agenda, item 4.2, 6th paragraph down, the first sentence reads, Mr. Hope noted that it is even worse than that. Then the next sentence reads, the requirements of the water service delivery as set out in the most recent bill, which looks like it is set to be enacted, full stop. Council or whoever the service provider is would have to set out standards. I think I understand the second sentence. I certainly don't understand the first. So it needs to be reworded. I don't know what it means. The requirements of the water services delivery as set out in the most recent bill, which looks like it is set to be enacted. I mean, the requirements of the water service delivery as set out in the most recent bill look as if they will be, appear to be.
It's set to be.
Well, in that case, the requirements, plural,
Water service delivery, it's missing the word.
as set out in the most recent bill, looks like they will be, yeah.
It's just missing the word plan.
Well, whatever, it doesn't make sense at the moment.
Okay, so subject to the amendments, you'll be moving that the minutes are correct?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Ryan. All in favour? Thank you, that's carried. All right, move to the next item. We move to agenda item number 4, decision reports, 4.1 on page 13. Okay, so this is in regards to the Waitaki Annual Resident Satisfaction Survey Report 2023-24. If I can pass that over to either Mr. Hope or our team to. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So yes, I'll take the report as read. It is a big report, but essentially this year we this report is done annually. The survey is done annually. And in the past, we have done it through the last probably 10 years or so through Key Research, who have coordinated the complete resident survey for us. The last year, the prices were continuing to rise. So we were looking at about $40,000 the costs are in that report. We decided last year to bring that survey in-house to try and deliver it ourselves. We were concerned when we had the discussion that we wanted to ensure that there was robustness in the survey responses so that there was no doubt by the community that we had done it in a way that was, not manipulated in any way by us in any reporting. And so we were lucky that we were going to work with Otago University, but through discussion with Key Research, they offered that they'd provide the survey link to the survey that we've been using in previous years through this current long-term plan to be embedded in our website, which provided a really great process for us. The survey responses that were provided went straight to Key Research, and they did all the analysis and provided all the graphs to us, which was an absolutely fantastic outcome for a very small cost of about $3,500. We didn't know what the response from the community would be like because in past we've really, the reason why the cost is so high is that we do a sample of N equals 100 over every quarter with a total sample of 400 people over the year. And we didn't know what that response would be like because we know how hard it is to get our feedback from our community when it comes to the annual plan and the long-term plan, and we value that feedback and it's so important to us, and we try every angle. So it was really exciting. We because of the savings that we made, sort of almost $40,000 saving, we decided to offer a $500 Prezi card to try and encourage our residents to get on board and to provide their feedback to us, because the only way we can learn is from that genuine feedback that we receive. So we were absolutely delighted. Within the first week, I think it was, we had more than 200 responses, and we finished up at 675 responses from our community. The general tone of feedback that we received through this survey this year was just a lot more pleasant. And I think that that may be on the response of the annual plan engagement that we had done that gave a lot of that background information as to what our situation is and where we're trying to do things differently. And it really sort of fed into this really well with the timing of the survey from the 1st of June through to the middle of July. So the tone was still there, and whilst there are a number of increases right throughout the majority of the areas, this is a different way that we've delivered it. So I think next year when we have the results again, will be more comparable. I think though, as I said, the tone was definitely not as harsh and negative as it had been in the past. And a lot of people, particularly, for example, in the Sealed Road area, where they increased there of 23%, they sort of said, we recognise we get from A to B on these roads. They do what we need to do. We travel other towns and they're as good as anywhere else. So it was actually really quite heartwarming to hear that the results, they were still honest in their feedback. We opened it up to all ages, and those that did respond were all in the 18 above age group. But I think it was a really great positive change for us to open it up to our whole district, all ages, and also to put that $500 Prezi card as an incentive out there. Really positive results, but as I said, it'll be interesting to compare these against next year, and I hope we have the same numbers from our community. That's all.
Great, thank you so much for that. Do we have any questions, comments? Yes, Councillor Hopkins.
Look, I think the comment that we as elected members need to accept is that the sort of bedrock of our engagement with the community is still problematic. I mean, the thing that puzzles me, if you look at the individual things that we do, the Opera House, what sports fields, cemeteries, public toilets, Chelmer Street, even the sealed roading network, people say that, you know, there's very positive levels of support, of satisfaction and the like. But then if you look at overall quality of services, up 10, but still 48, overall value for money, only 33%. I think there are more dissatisfied than satisfied there. How rates are spent on services and facilities up a little from 26 to 31 again. More dissatisfied than satisfied, rates being fair and reasonable. Only 29% of people think they are. More think they're not. Overall financial management, again, only 29%. So the message in terms of, you know, our relationship with the people whose pockets we have the power in law to raid, the message is they don't like the way and the extent to which we are doing that. And we just have to take that on board, in my view. But as I say, that sort of dissatisfaction with the essence of our operation doesn't entirely gel with this, with the much higher levels of satisfaction with specific things that we do and provide. So I think the perception is, hey, we've got good services, but we're paying too much for them, and you guys should cost us less. But anyway, that's my comment. If I may ask some questions, Madam Chair, and they relate to the questions that are proposed to be asked next year. And if you'd allow me to, if we can go to on page 78 of our agenda, I wonder if Amanda, the first demographic question, which of the following age groups, plural, do you belong to? And when I first read it, I thought, well, you can't belong to more than one age group at a time. So I'm wondering if you'd agree that that might be better worded. Which age group do you belong to? And then looking at page 81 and then going on to 83 and 84, there are questions. 81 says, have you visited any of the libraries in the Waitaki district in the past 12 months? on 83, it says, have you been to any parks and reserves? And on 84, it's, have you visited any sports fields? In each case, I think it would be a very helpful extra question. If yes, which one? I think it would be very helpful to know which ones are being used most. So would you agree that they might be useful amendments to the questions?
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Yes, I totally agree. It'd be valuable to get that information. The change to any question does generally cost us $500. So I would need to see whether what those sorts of changes would cost. If it's only sort of a couple and it's worthwhile getting that information, we can do that. However, yeah, we do review these questions, and I think there'll be there may be quite a bit of change when we actually look at this again next year for the 25 to 34 long-term plan. But I think there's a lot of work that can be done to these questions to make them more valuable and more current to what we are wanting to know as an organisation, right through our services that we offer our community. But yeah, I can definitely have that conversation. As I said, Key Research have been really wonderful to work with this year and really done some great work. So I can see if I can make that change.
Possibly even if we combine the question about parks, reserves and sports fields. So it was, have you visited any parks, reserves or sports fields? So that made it one question rather than two. And then which one? I think given the debate about the libraries at the moment, it would be particularly fruitful to have a clearer idea of which libraries people are using.
Thank you. I got a question from Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, I don't want to be on the defensive, but I'm looking at the negative result for the Wahimo Community Board, which some people are going to flagellate themselves over. But we've got 55% of the respondents who sit neutral or don't know. So it's the old adage of there's lies, statistics and damn lies.
Lies, damn lies. Yes, yes.
Thank you for that. No further comment. Thank you. Councillor Ryan. Oh, okay, Mr. Neil, then Councillor Ryan.
Look, thank you. I was just going to pick up on a couple of things. One, Councillor Hopkins said before, we seem to get really positive responses for the specific questions and not such positive responses for the generic ones. I mean, I guess it's a little bit akin to saying, are you happy with your power bill? No one's ever going to say that they are when you ask those broader questions, but do you like the park and do you like the sports centre? People tend to go, yes. So I was just wondering, carrying on from Councillor Hopkins' request of Mandy, if there was the opportunity for us to maybe have something in there, or there may already be something in there and I haven't read it, along the lines of a free text. Where do you think the council is wasting money, or something termed much better than that, but giving people the opportunity to be able to expand on that? We don't think we're getting value for money. I'm sure they'll turn around. I'm sure it'll come back and say, well, you're paying staff too much or something, but it might be useful for a steer.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. I just wonder, in the communication space, we're asking questions about whether people are aware of our communication and what communication they're aware of. But when we're talking about needing to engage with people more and how we do that, can we actually ask people what their preferred method is, or, you know, what channels they're using the most, so we can actually, no, but it's not like.
Well, how do you communicate with the council? Telephone, email?
No, but that's their engagement with the council, and that's not about like our communication in terms of like, yeah.
Sorry, you're wanting to ask, I've now got confused by that.
Sorry, so we're in the communication section, we're asking, are people are aware of communication from council over the past 12 months? What communication they're aware of? So listing, social media, emails, public meetings and events, but like it doesn't actually ask what their preferred channel is, just to get an understanding of how, especially with those age groups, and how to sort of more specifically target them when we're trying to communicate and get better engagement from the community.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Nothing from you, Mr. Neil? Okay, well, there are some recommendations there. Is anyone happy to?
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to move the recommendations except based on comments I heard and Councillor Ryan had and also Mr. Neil. I'd amend 4 to read agrees that the changes as agreed are included in the 2024-25 Waitaki Annual Resident Survey questions. But other than that, I would move 1, 2, and 3 as they are worded.
Okay, so we have Councillor Hopkins happy to move 1, 2, and 3 with and 4 with and a slight amendment. Seconded by Councillor Ryan. Okay, we'll put it to vote. All in favour?
Aye.
Yeah, any against? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. For that, okay, we'll move to 4.2 on page 93. Okay, so this is the Treasury Strategy, financial year 24-25, second quarter. I'll pass it over to Ms. Nichols.
I'll take the report as read in the interest of time. This is the standard report that comes quarterly, looking ahead to the next quarter, requesting that the council adopts this strategy for the second quarter, the same approaches as previously to monitor cash, projecting future cash requirements, liaising with our GFA in terms of borrowing, obtaining advice from Bancorp, and investing funds that are surplus. There is a lot of detail in there as we give each quarter about our current investments. There's been a few changes that have come about of council decisions this morning. And then there's the current situation of our borrowings, which is still sitting at 72 million. There was a couple of things. So obviously Waitaki District Health Services was spoke about this morning. We it's hard to forecast cash positions if there's ongoing uncertainty about loan repayments and all that sort of stuff. So and the decision about lending to other organisations. So it's really hard. We are maintaining the forecast as tight as possible, but it can be a moving beast constantly. Also trying to get a closer eye on what we're looking at to pay the 20th of the month in terms of creditors and things like that. So we are working on keeping a close eye on our cash balances and keeping our borrowing down as much as possible, but it is quite difficult with the ongoing changes that are happening. I'll take any questions.
Thank you for that. Okay, questions? Councillor Hopkins?
Yes, good question. One is a provision in this reading from breaking news. And two, is it possible to page 97 of the report here? Sorry, that it's just an email that sent me. I'm just curious if you could give us a bit more information under the future borrowing requirements. This is not, I'm not challenging you, but can you just amplify this? The LGFA has proven extremely responsive to requests for funding assistance and will provide funds for very short periods of time, although obtaining new and refinancing existing loans requires paperwork. So, sorry. The question is under page 97, LGFA has proved extremely responsive to requests for funding assistance and will provide funds for very short periods of time if needed. Although obtaining new refinancing existing loans requires more paperwork, LGFA debt will always be more reasonably priced. What do you mean by very short periods of time? How often are we going to that particular well and why are we going to it, please?
So we can typically turn it around with our GFA in a couple of days if we need to. So that can be a big unforeseen capital project or lending to another organisation that we didn't know about last week or the likes. So yeah, if we wanted to, we could contact LGFA and our legal representatives today and be getting the paperwork tomorrow and signing it. It requires Alex to sign. So yeah, it's just letting you know that we can borrow quickly in an emergency if we needed to.
So just to clarify, it says here will provide funds for very short periods of time if needed. What your answer is that it will provide funds in very short periods of time. So my question is it funds in very short periods of time or for very short periods of time? And if it's the latter, why are we doing it?
It's in very short periods of time. We wouldn't borrow from LGFA for a very short period of time. We'd dip into our overdraft or CAL facility.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Neil?
No, it sounds like I have a lot to catch up on from this morning.
Okay, are we ready? Do I have a mover for the recommendations? Oh, sorry, Mia Kuchar.
Are you moving?
Are you moving?
Yeah, I'll see.
Okay, so the recommendations they are moved by Mia Kuchar, seconded by Councillor Hopkins. Did you want anyone that speaks? Okay, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move to okay, I have a memorandum reports, placeholder 5. We'll go to 5.1 on. My apologies, just looking for the pages.
No, it's the
agenda addendum.
agenda addendum, so we go to the next.
Just read that. Okay, so we will call the procedural report and then the actual report for the agenda item 5.1. And both are included in the agenda addendum to this meeting. So that, yes, Mayor Kuchar?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. I'm happy to move that we accept the late agenda item entitled the draft annual report for the financial year 2023 to 24.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? So it's a seconder to accept the late agenda item. Thank you, Councillor McCone. Those in favour?
No.
Okay, we might have to have a show of hands. Those in favour, can you please make a show of hands that you are willing to accept the late agenda item? So we have 2. Those against? And we have 2.
But Mr. Neil online and yourself.
Okay, I'd like to ask Mr. Neil.
Look, having received 174 pages at 5 o'clock last night, I don't feel in any position to accept anything.
Okay, so that's 3. That's lost.
Madam Chair, I will move that we defer the late item to another date by council resolution at this meeting or by committee resolution at this meeting.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Hopkins. Does anyone second? All right, seconded by Councillor Ryan. Those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, that's carried.
Gee, could I just make a comment on that? I thought I'd move that we do accept it so that we could basically discuss it a little bit more in detail, the fact that we haven't had enough time to consider it, and that we would then perhaps not receive the annual report. But with the the decision and so forth, it fulfills that. But yeah, I think this is an important document amongst the documents that we get, and it's something that we do need to have time to go through properly. And as Mr. Neil says, yeah, it just wasn't enough time to go through. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we'll just have to work out how we can represent this. It will be difficult. I mean, it's really the next time it will be the final annual report, which will be at the end of October. So I think, you know, to review it, probably not, and certainly won't be in a PAR setting. It would need to be in some other forum to consider the document, but you will need to consider that after the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. And just acknowledging, yeah, just the short time frame that was available for everyone just to go through the documentation. All right, so we're going to move now to memorandum reports 5.2, financial summary to 31st of August 2024, and that's found on page 101.
Okay, so this is just a brief update on the financial situation to 31 March 24, so represents the first 2 months of the year. There's some high-level variance explanations about how we're doing and a snapshot of the P&L, how our spend is looking for CapEx, and then a really high level of the balance sheet, which isn't looking too bad. I'll take any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Amanda, I suppose the thing that always puzzles me is pretty much every report we get, first thing we're told is that the budget or the deficit for the period is greater than expected. In this instance, it's 6,140, I guess, rather than 3,366. And there's no obvious explanation as to why that is, and equally there's no obvious explanation as to why it appears to be continually, the needle continually seems to go into the red rather than the black in respect of this matter. And the other point I would say to both yourself and to Paul, I noticed the third bullet point down, depreciation is reported over budget by 52K, largely as a result of the larger than expected roading revaluation at June 2023. This variance will continue to grow. This is not a laughing matter. It actually amounts to people paying more on their rates every year. I believe we need to address this constant escalation in depreciation charges annually and find some way to ameliorate, offset, or accept them, because you've told us that we're not only are we going to have this valuation, we're also revaluation, we're going to also have the waters revaluation, which will push the depreciation over budget figure up even higher, I guess. So is there any work going on within the finance team about this constant escalation of depreciation costs?
We do the best that we can. So I guess there's just been such a significant increase in costs. So when our revaluations happen each year and our assets are revalued against the current costs, like the new roading indices, it inflates the value, and therefore the amount that we have to put aside each year in depreciation gets inflated as well. So it's just about trying to predict the future of how much rates cost increases are going to be for those big capital items. We put something in the budget and it doesn't always match what we've expected. And then in terms of the variances, we've explained on the first page the high level reasons. So there's external grant funding under budget quite significantly. A lot of it's to do with timing of works, the capital roading work. You can see another big line there. The project reclaim is well higher than it is expected to be. So that pretty much makes up the bulk of that difference in operating deficit. About halfway down the page 102, project reclaim. We've spent almost 4 million against a budget of 2.3.
Sorry.
So yeah, less revenue, higher expenditure.
Thank you for that. Mr. Neil, you have a question or a comment to make?
Well, both actually. I was just going to add to Amanda's comment before. We're only a couple of months into the year, so it's really tricky to read too much into some of these numbers against budget when we work in such a lumpy business. And I absolutely appreciate and understand that things might iron out a bit as the year goes forward. But I did have one question around the final bullet point under income and expenditure on page 101, the last sentence. So it talks about our cost of borrowings and our financial costs being significantly over budget, which I think we all understand. But what I don't quite understand is the very last sentence that says it is hoped that we will see an improvement in this expense by year end. And I just don't quite get how we're going to expect that when interest rates are still high and we're probably going to end up borrowing more.
I guess we were, it's badly written. We were wanting the improvement would be that the expense is less than budgeted. And so we're kind of hoping that continues, that the rates are lower than expected and that we keep our borrowing lower than we budgeted throughout the year.
Thank you for that explanation. Ms. Nichols, any other comments? Councillor McCone.
It's just a comment, and I suppose it's a terrible question. It's crystal ball gazing actually, but under revenue, our grants are down by almost 1 million and our DCs are down by 130K. Given the current situation, do you see that improving or do you see that as a trend?
So the grants is quite hard. So that was one of our big reasons. So talking about roading subsidies being behind 826K due to timing of the works. So a lot of the time, like a roading project will be just flatlined, split out over the 12 months, but then it might all happen in the last 6 months. So then the grant funding will come after the fact. So it's just really hard to budget for grants across the year, like when you look at it at an individual month. And then DCs, we kind of budget based on prior year and any known big things going on. So it's the same sort of thing. It might flatten itself out across as we get more years or more months through the year. It will look closer to budget, but obviously not a lot going on in that area these first 2 months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from anyone?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you for that. So Councillor Hopkins moves the recommendation that the Power Committee receives and notes the information. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor McCone. Those in favour?
No.
Against? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move to 5.3 risk management updates for the September quarter. Thank you, Ms. Lyons.
Thank you. So as with every quarter, we've completed a review of the key risk register. This quarter has been probably the most stable we've seen in the last year. So the only risk that did slightly increase in score was major economic event risk, and that just reflects the current national economic condition. But that still remains a high risk, so it didn't bump it up into that very high category. We do have 7 extremely high risks at the moment. So they are externally managed council water supplies, which we're hoping to get some controls in place for over the next few months, and hopefully that will drop in score. 3 waters management, political uncertainty, climate change, credit risk failure by a borrowing entity, affordability and financial sustainability, which is the most recent addition to the register, and district development. A lot of those risks are massively impacted by our external operating environment, so there's not too much we can do to bring those down, but obviously we'll continue looking at any possible controls that we can add to mitigate those risks. We have continued to assess operational risks throughout the quarter, so each team has an operational risk register and they have completed their assessments. And for operational risk events, we're doing quite a bit of work on those processes to make sure that everyone understands what they've got to do to report them. But no operational risk events have yet reached the threshold that would require reporting to this committee. The risk management policy is due to be reapproved by the end of the year, so this committee will receive an updated version of that policy, and within that we are making some changes so that this committee will see a subsection of the key risk register which is pre-approved by yourselves rather than all 26 risks on that register, because we acknowledge that it's quite a lot of information and probably all those risks don't need governance oversight. So that will be a work in progress next quarter. Are there any questions?
Great, thank you for that. Any questions, comments?
I'll just probably add a couple of things. I mean, it's, having 7 very high risks are sort of being reported to you. It's, I don't think officers are particularly comfortable about that, and we wish we could do more about it, but I think it just does reflect the challenging operating environment that, not only councils, but business, but every member of the community is facing at the moment. Certainly increasing costs, a lot of uncertainty. And so if we were coming here and saying, no, everything's fine and dandy, I think you'd be far more worried, that we're just living in a bit of a fantasy land. All we're trying to do here is highlight these issues to you, that, to show that we are very aware of them and taking active measures wherever we can to mitigate the risks, particularly as they relate to council, and put as many controls in this place as we can, but still with some of these, because they are so external, there is a limited amount that we can do to actually shield council from the impacts of the sort of the wider economy. So.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or feedback? Okay, do I have someone that's able to move the recommendation that's provided in front of us? Okay, recommendation that this committee receives a notes of information moved by Councillor Ryan, seconded by Mayor Kircher. Those in favour? Against? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Lyons.
Doing the next one as well.
And she's going to be doing the next one as well, 5.4, page 112. Okay, so this is a procurement update, September quarter. Thank you, Ms. Lyons.
Thank you. So this update is more of a third than a quarter, because we brought the report a little bit early last time. So this is contracts entered into during May, June, July and August of this year. So there were a total of 37 contracts, which have a value of just over $34 million. That is largely made up of the events centre contract, which is within the property section of this report. So that makes up a large chunk of that 34 million. We had 11 of those contracts relating to professional services and 26 relating to goods or works. We did discuss at the last meeting a forward-looking procurement report. So that would be anything in the next 3 months that is due to go out to market with a value of over 1.5 million. So that would go back to council for approval at the contract award stage. And we don't have anything currently in the next 3 months that is going out at that value. So there is no report in that section. all the details of all the contracts awarded are in the attachment, and I will take any questions on those.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hopkins, followed by Councillor McCone.
Yeah, Amelia, thank you for this. I guess my question is it good practice for nearly 50% of the roading contracts to be non-standard? And looking at the list of non-standard contracts awarded that are included on page 114, why were they non-standard?
So there are various different reasons for those non-standard approaches. They do have to get approval prior to using a non-standard approach. So that's going through an additional layer of management to say that, yes, you can directly appoint, for example. So the majority of those, I imagine, would have been direct appointments. And sometimes that's because works are needed in a really short amount of time. Or we've already got people who have, for example, the traffic management in place on a certain road, so it wouldn't make sense to go and get someone else to do work in a similar area. So there are certain reasons like that why roading do utilise that process.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor McCone.
Yeah, so you say there's no contracts going out under 1.5 million. That is not a combined total, that's a per contract total, is that correct?
That's correct. So it was over 1.5 million. So yes, the individual value of contracts, there's nothing going out over 1.5 million in the next 3 months.
Yeah, and contract 990, is that for broken down councils they're digging test pits for, or what's that about?
On page 114.
Maintenance support.
114, contract 990.
Yes, that's.
Test pits for cancer. I think they want to bury you, Scrooge.
I could find out more detail if you'd like more detail on those test pits and the location of those.
Since he asked. No, that is about actually designing the road rehab program. So rehab is a major piece of work. So to actually undertake that effectively, you've got to understand the structure, the substructure of the road. And so the way to do that is small test pits to understand that. Unfortunately, some of them it's just almost sitting straight on clay, so it's a bit more work than we were thinking. So.
Well, thank you. Mr. Neil, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, look, my question is a supplementary question to Councillor Hopkins. So when I see the report that Ms. Lyons has presented on page 112 and exactly to Councillor Hopkins' point, if I see almost 50% of contracts going out non-standard, that sets off an alarm bell in my head. I know, Amelia, you've explained the logic and the reason behind it. So maybe the question is the definition of a standard or a non-standard contract in the roading space the right one or not? Because to me, 50% just seems, nearly 50% seems wrong. So perhaps we've got the definition wrong.
So I guess the definition is a tricky one because it's in the policy to work across all departments, and some departments inevitably will have to procure in certain ways, whereas other ones won't have to. So I guess that's the only real thing we've got with the standard and non-standard, is that we make sure that there's additional approvals, and that makes sure that there is a sense check and an extra pair of eyes that says, yes, that seems reasonable. So for a lot of those roading ones, there will have been, well, for all of those non-standard ones, there will have been very valid reasons for that. So it's not to say that there's anything wrong with non-standard. It just means that we have backed ourselves up to say that, yes, there was a very good reason for that.
So pick up Mr. Neal's point, I think it would, looking at the level of non-standard, highlighting that the next time we review the procurement contract, the procurement policy to say,
Yeah.
well, maybe it needs some refinement to either lift a value or have some tweak to say, oh, yeah, a lot of these are, we didn't go out and get 3 prices because, it wasn't effective for given the market and the value. Yeah, so we can have a look at those and bring back a further recommendation the next time we review the procurement policy.
Yes,
Perfect.
thank you for that. It's just good to minute that it's been acknowledged. That we may need to review and just have a look at the criteria and the policy settings and just the protocols, just around the internal controls. Just to advise. All right, any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation that we receive and note the information in regards to the procurement update, moved by Councillor Hopkins, seconded by Councillor Ryan. Those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. And we will now move to public excluded. Can I have a mover that we go into public excluded, please? Thank you very much, Ms. Lanes.
I think I've talked about.
Okay, so moved that we go into public excluded by Councillor Ryan, seconded by Councillor McCone. Thank you, that's carried.
Madam Chair, I'll move the confirmation of the public excluded minutes. I think it's the only item on there that didn't public excluded, isn't it?
Still going.
Still online.
Madam Chair, I will move the confirmation of the public excluded minutes.